In this episode, I sit down with Ash from Strategem to talk about all things business. We get stuck into the importance of planning, succession planning, thinking about what it means to be a trusted advisor and how the accounting industry has evolved and what that means for helping you support you in your business. If you're thinking about buying a business, if you're thinking about selling, or even if you just have the idea of what would succession look like, you need to listen to this episode and hear the important things that Ash discussed regarding succession planning and planning for your business for today. Welcome to the Enriched Wealth Podcast. This episode, we're excited to be joined by Ash Hill, partner at Strategem, and we're here today to have a great conversation about all things accounting. Welcome, Ash. Thanks for joining us at the podcast studio today.
Thanks, Kris. Good to be here.
So, Ash, partner at Strategem. How many years have you actually been at Strategem now?
I like to joke that I started last century.
Yeah, nice.
So I started in August 1999 at Strategem. So getting towards 26 and a half years at Strategem.
That is a good innings.
It's more than many people in their careers nowadays spend in the one job, yes.
Certainly, probably at least 27 celebrity marriages worth of time as well too.
That's correct, yes.
No, that's good. Well, so you've obviously seen a lot of, you've experienced a lot, probably seen a lot of change, dealt a lot with your clients and their change over the years as well too. But as a starting point, why accounting?
The only honest answer I can give is I'm not too sure why I ended up in accounting. It was a favourite subject of mine at high school. I enjoyed the accounting, economics, law subjects at high school.
Yes.
So I was heading down that path. It certainly
you get a minor in law doing accounting anyway, don't you?
Yes.
There's just that element of you've got to be able to interpret what government
That's
releases and how to apply it.
That's correct. Yeah, so and I wasn't particularly interested in the sciences and those sort of things. I'm not very good with my hands, so trade skills were not going to be something that I did. So I went down the accounting path. Sort of 4 of my best friends all went and did accounting at Bendigo with me.
Yep.
Since then, I've got 4 brothers-in-law, 3 of whom are all accountants. So very much my generation coming through.
Your wife is an accountant.
My wife's an accountant also.
Does that create interesting dinner conversations?
Accountants always have interesting dinner conversations, Kris. We're well known for our interesting conversations. But I will say it has been a benefit in that she understands some of the stresses involved with being a partner at an accounting firm and understanding deadlines and certain timeframes and that sort of thing. So it has been good, yes.
Yes, and I think that is one thing that can be hard for people outside the industry to understand is that we do have really specific deadlines, and if you don't get things done by those deadlines, there is some consequences involved.
That's correct.
And so we carry that weight when we're dealing with clients and working for them. So
that's right.
Yep. That's good. It's good that you can have. You had a bit of a network coming through uni, which helps because I think that can be hard if you don't have anyone that you know. But also too to have someone who understands it day to day is good as well too.
And accounting was a popular career choice 30 odd years ago, and perhaps before that, but certainly when I was coming through year 12 into university, accounting was a career that attracted a number of people. I think La Trobe Uni, when I went through, started with about 200 students in the business course. So it was a big popular course back then. Yes,
and it's certainly, it's dwindled now over the years, but I think the demand for accountants is still out there. That hasn't changed. So it's interesting that we just don't have necessarily the supply, but we certainly do have the demand. Now, you haven't had all your time at Strategem. People would be thinking 27 years old, 27 years at Strategem, you must have started when you were 10, just a savant going through uni maybe or something like that. But Strategem wasn't your first place either, was it?
No, so I spent 6 months at a local building firm. My first job as the internal accountant there.
Yep.
And then spent just under 2 years travelling between Bendigo and Maryborough to an accounting firm over there. So that was my first work in an accounting practice over there.
Yeah. Okay. So travel each day.
Travelled each day.
That's commitment.
That was, and it probably, I did only see it as a stepping stone to somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I was very, very lucky that a really close family friend of ours, John Ledwidge, who was part of the Strategem or Ashman Ralph back in the day, and he was the family accountant, family friend, rang me up one day and said, "Hey, Ashman Ralph have got a job open. Would you like to come in for an interview?"
There you go. And for those listening, John Ledwidge is he's passed on now, but he played a significant role at Strategem. We even have a room named after him. We have the Ledwidge room, which
we do.
Is a testament to his time there as well too. So there you go. So there is a bit of it's who you know and developing your networks and making sure that you've got people in your life that can help connect you.
That's
to
it.
The right
That's
people
it.
too.
Absolutely.
So, no, that's really good. So then you came to Strategem, working there, then became a partner in
8, almost 9 years ago now.
Yep.
Coming up to 9 years.
And I don't see any grey hairs, so you've done pretty well to keep the colour. Unless
I'm pleased that there's few grey hairs and there's still some hair there. It's not a genetic trait in the family, so I'm defying a bit of logic.
Well, there you go. You must come at it with the right attitude. No, that's good. So 9 years as a partner. How did you find the shift from being employee to business owner for you? Because for those out there who may not understand accounting well, partner is essentially an owner of the business, so you own a portion of the business. So you've gone from working as an accountant to now and working with business owners, now being a business owner but still working with other business owners. So how was that shift for you when that came about?
Certainly so Strategem has an associate program,
yep.
And I spent 2 or 3 years in that program, which gave me
essentially a leadership program.
A leadership program, yeah, which gave me a couple of years of experience moving from being an employee into a more management leadership style role. I was, prior to becoming a partner, you were potentially leading a number of clients and seeing a number of clients on your own. You weren't reliant on a partner leading those conversations with those clients.
So you were already developing
some of those.
So I was
doing some of that, but the actual management of Strategem was new to me when I, one, joined the associate program, 2, became a partner.
Yep.
So it then became, while managing staff in teams as a leader, it's very different once you're a partner and an owner of the business.
Yes.
So having to develop some of those skills and learn some of those traits along the way, and leaning on mentoring from the existing partnership and the skills that they had that they could impart on me.
Which I think even in the associate program, there's still a mentor relationship that you develop as well too, isn't there? So it is key for all of those younger people out there that might be listening that you get mentors in your life, get people who have gone through the journey. Yes, they might see the world a bit different to you, but there is value in that perspective, I think.
And the lucky thing at Strategem was there were 7 or 8, 9 partners at the time.
Yep.
So you got to experience some skills from 7 or 8, 9 different people. You weren't getting leadership skills from just one person in a small business, whether it be an accounting firm, law firm, a retail shop, anything like that. You're only learning from 1 or 2 people. I was learning from 7 or 8 partners, plus a CEO, plus senior accountants, senior advisors, and it was valuable experience. And
I think too, Strategem's got a pretty diverse client base, so you're not locked into a specific type of client either. Like you get to see sort of all the different things that come up. And I know there are plenty of times during the year where we see different client situations and you get different people involved depending on experience. So that's invaluable, isn't it?
Yeah, that's correct. And you've got to be able to, as an accountant or as an advisor, you've got to be able to speak to the level of the person on the other side of the desk from you, or the kitchen table and that sort of thing, or across the yard. So you're dealing with other professionals. You're dealing with lawyers, architects, town planners, doctors, that sort of thing. You're dealing with, so they will bring a different perspective to the table than what a builder will, an electrician, a plumber, as opposed to then a farmer, a retail shop owner. There's a variety of levels of understanding on the people on the other side of the desk, and you've got to be able to communicate on their level so they understand what you're trying to give, what advice you're trying to give them.
And I think that's one thing that's crucial, is that communication piece. And I think that's in a lot of jobs, your ability to communicate is the difference between you being able to get along well with people and being able to convey ideas to wondering why no one understands what you're talking about and everyone doesn't seem to get it. So
it is that personal relationship you develop. I mean, we talk about the trusted advisor, but it is very important that the client has trust in you, because we are advising them to spend an amount of money, to invest an amount of money, to do this to save money, do this to change your business. So we're giving them advice. They've got to trust the advice we're giving them, so they've got to trust us.
Yes. Like to talk a little bit about too, so you're not only a partner, but you also head up our community foundation. So would like to talk about the community foundation for a few minutes. You've been involved. I know you've been involved in charities and other things along the way as well too. So for you, what's Strategem Community Foundation? What does it mean to you?
Yeah, so that's one of the things I'm really proud of at Strategem is the Community Foundation.
Yep.
And what it is,
been going for
it's many years now. So I'm lucky enough to be the current chair of the foundation.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, I missed that on the intro. I called you partner.
That's right.
Chairman of the Community Foundation.
But one of the things with the Community Foundation, what we try and do is we're looking at supporting small and local organisations. So not only Bendigo local, but potentially Melbourne local with our Melbourne office, or regionally around our client base. So we have clients anywhere between Bendigo and Melbourne, but up north, past Kerrang, into Swan Hill, across to Shepparton, all around, let alone around Australia. But we look at supporting local organisations, small community groups that potentially can't get government support, don't get the support from bigger charitable or philanthropic organisations.
Yes.
So we look at supporting small organisations for small projects. We're not looking at supporting the building of a new facility, but we will look at supplying and providing support to purchase new IT systems, new air conditioning for the new building, potentially some furniture for a new building or something like that. We've done irrigation for a local community garden market. Righteous Pups we've supported in the past with sponsorship for training some puppies in that organisation. So we're looking small community theatre. Yeah, so look, those small community organisations that need just a little bit of support.
And I think too, some of those smaller organisations probably struggle to get the attention of those looking for a big project to support, because it's a nice headline with a big project, but it doesn't always help those smaller organisations who might be really passionate about what they're doing, or there's just not the attention that might be there on some of these other things. So
that's right. And they are grants of $2,000, $3,000, $5,000, $7,500 that we look at giving out, and we look to how we can make a difference for that organisation.
That's great. And how long have you been chair for?
I've been chair for about 4 years now. And the committee for the foundation's made up of Strategem employees. We have representatives from our Melbourne office, we have representatives from the financial planning division, we have representatives from the tax and accounting division here in Bendigo.
Yeah, great.
And all decisions basically on where the grants go are made by that committee. We receive submissions every year, and we all take it pretty seriously. Everybody gets an equal say, and we have the round table discussions. Everybody comes with their 3, 2, 1, and we have some arguments across the table. That one's more worthy than that one, but we think we do a good result with it in the end.
And I think too, the fact that staff can be involved, and it's not just this thing out there that they sort of hear about every once in a while, but they're actually engaged in that, I think is very valuable from
And really, to a certain extent, it is our staff that are driving it rather than me as chair. A number of the staff really do drive it and are looking at what they can do next as part of the community foundation.
Yeah, excellent. That's really good. That's sorry, that was a little segue there. If we change gears a little bit, what clients do you what are some of the types of clients you're seeing day in and day out as a partner here at Strategem?
So I don't have a specialty in any one particular field, but
Jack of all trades.
Bit of a jack of all trades.
Yep.
I do have a large farming client base. Probably 30 to 40% of my clients are farmers.
Yes.
But I have transport businesses. I have retail shops as clients. Professionals. I've got some doctors and some lawyers as clients. We've got, as I say, retail shops, hospitality, and number of builders, plumbers, painters, and the trades as well.
So quite a diverse spread of clients. Do you find having a bit of diversity helps bring a different perspective to when you're dealing with some clients, because you see other parts of, let's say, the economic cycle or the industries that are out there that are impacted by different things going on?
Well, there is some experiences and what I've learnt from some clients that I can then pass on to and deliver good advice to other clients. Things that I've learnt from one industry can move into, don't have to be partitioned in just that one industry. They can go to another industry, and you can learn from that, which you've learnt from potentially from farmers and their experience. You can pass that on to a transport and logistics company.
Yes.
A retail shop, you can pass on what they've learnt with dealing with staff and that sort of thing to potentially a hospitality business. So yes, you can always learn something from every client.
Yep. And I think there is some real value in that. I did hear an example. I can't remember specifically the industry, but they actually got a Formula One team in to talk about how their pit crew operates, and it was to talk about performance and efficiency and supporting each other and things like that. And so they were using their learnings from those 2-second pit changes and what they need to do to coordinate for it, to say, well, when we're dealing with clients in this industry, these are the kind of things that we need to be thinking about more so if we put our Formula One hat on. So I think there's some value in that. What are you seeing out there in the business space at the moment? We're well past the early 2020s, which it makes me feel old when I say stuff like that. But that all feels like a distant memory. But we're kind of in this higher inflation period. We've got interest rates climbing again and things like that. So what are you seeing out there in the industry at the moment for businesses and some of the struggles they've got going on?
So we're not seeing much of a drop in turnover for most businesses.
Yep.
Most businesses are keeping a pretty decent turnover. But the big challenge they're facing is their input costs are just continually rising and have been for 3 or 4 years now.
So you might have a business that's turning over $2 million, but their input costs are 10% higher than they were last year, which is essentially eating into margins and different things like that.
That's correct. Correct. So and that's not industry specific. That's across that wide sector that I'm sort of talking about in my client base. So they're experiencing those increased costs. Farmers have had a really good 3 or 4 years in this region, and I acknowledge that there are farmers outside of this region that are doing it really tough. Luckily, the farmers around this region and most of my client base have had a good few years, but they're still noticing the same thing. Their input costs are going up. I was speaking to a farmer last week where their turnover's actually gone up 15-20% this year, which is fantastic. They've got good prices for their product that they're selling, but their input costs are following that pretty quickly. So that 20% increase in turnover has been eaten up pretty quickly by those input costs. And looking forward and budgeting for them, they're not expecting any further increase in turnover, but they're still budgeting for increase in cost. So that margin, even though they're on the back of a good year, that margin is going to get tinier next year the way things are heading.
And I think too that margin creep is something a lot of business owners need to be aware of in terms of when they're pricing their products. It's a little bit harder for farmers because they've got to sort of take whatever the market's offering at that point in time. But if you've got the ability to review your prices, I think there's an argument that you need to be doing that on a regular basis. Otherwise, you are going to be in this position where you are going to continue to see margin creep, and it's hard to get out of once you start losing too much margin to go, well, now I've got to put up prices 20% when if I had been on this a little bit more.
And my better commercial business clients, the more successful those businesses, they are right on top of their margin. They know exactly what their margin is. They know exactly what they want to earn from each job, and they don't go under that. Yep. They will submit the tender at that price to earn their margin, and if they don't win that tender, they just move on to the next tender. So they are not risking their margin by lowering their price and trying to, essentially we use the term buy work.
Yes.
No, they are rigid on those margins, and that is really successful for them.
And I think too, there's probably quite a few examples of people being burned, if we go back a couple of years, where they were maybe just buying work, but then prices went through the roof, and so all of a sudden that work is now costing them rather than supplementing or the cash flow they need to continue.
That's correct.
Going.
That's right. Yeah.
Which is to say, sometimes you've got to stick to your guns and know your numbers.
Yeah.
In terms of what are you seeing? We've seen a lot around staffing pressures as well. Are you seeing that it's still hard to find staff in this environment for different businesses? Are they still struggling to find people? I know we've talked before about there's been some places that are actually looking at reducing and just going back to themselves working because it's just too hard to find the staff, keep the staff, train the staff. So are you seeing those pressures still floating around out there?
Still out there, and it's still across pretty much every industry. The farmers are still looking for farm hands and labourers on their farms.
Yep.
Being completely selfish, accounting firms are still looking for financial planners and accounting staff. They're looking for those professional staff. But hospitality, I had a major hospitality client sort of say to me there at the end of last year, they advertised up at La Trobe University here at Bendigo for some part-time hospitality staff. Didn't get one applicant. That's where they used to get 10 staff every 6 months for their serving as waitresses, waiters, gaming staff, bar staff, drive-through staff.
And so when you can't get staff from the normal places, where do you find them? How do you get them to support? Those kind of things. It changes the model sometimes as well too.
And I'm seeing some of my clients actually paying above award wages and above competition wages to keep the one or two staff that they've got because they're really happy with those staff and don't want to risk losing those staff.
Yep. In terms of, we talked about your length of tenureship with Strategem. You would have seen it over the years, people buying and selling businesses and things like that. Are you having many succession discussions at the moment?
It feels like that's the only discussion I'm having at the moment. And again, across every industry.
Yep.
It is an ongoing discussion with farmers, and it needs to be an ongoing discussion with farmers because they are unique in their circumstances.
And I think too, just using farmers as an example for a minute, the property values have changed significantly over the last 5 to 10 years, say.
Yep.
And so what we're looking at is potentially a much larger asset base than we were, but it's only producing. We talk about turnover. It's not producing at the same exponential rate that the value has gone up. So all of a sudden you've got this expensive piece of land that you've got to hand off in a succession plan, but not everyone's going to be inheriting that land. So how do we divvy that up? It starts creating some really complicated conversations. Doesn't it?
They are difficult conversations, and it's making all the parties involved at the start aware that this is going to be a difficult process, and there's going to have to be some give and take. Not everybody's going to get what is an equal share, but it can still be a fair share. And that's what you've got to work on, is what is fair to everybody. Yep. But certainly farmers' succession planning, it's a discussion every time I meet with a farmer, even if it's the casual question of, what are the kids up to? What do you think they're going? What are you thinking of doing in the next 5 years? So it doesn't have to be a specific conversation, but it can just be a general keeping it front of mind for them.
But I think it's important too, because at some point they will need to hand it on. And if they're not having that conversation now, it's a lot harder to sort it all out. If you've had an accident, you're laid up in hospital, you wake up one morning and say, I don't want to do this anymore, or I need to hand this over, or even worse, if the unexpected happens and someone passes away, all of those conversations, if they're had now, make all of that time a lot easier, and it's a lot better in terms of there's not the fights and the transition's a lot easier as well.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, no, absolutely. It has got to be, and not just for farmers, but for every business owner, they need to always keep in mind what is their, I call it the escape plan, but what is their exit strategy out of the business?
Where am I in 5 years, and am I still doing this? And,
how am I getting out of this business? How am I selling it? Who am I selling it to? Can I sell it? Is it currently saleable? And that's where you can't decide today that I'm going to put the business on the market if you haven't got the structures in place to make it a saleable asset.
And haven't done the groundwork too, I'd imagine, because there's probably a lot of things people don't always think about when they're in that process. And as the trusted advisor, people come to you and say, Ash, what should I do? And it's like, well, we need to get... correct me if I'm wrong, you start pulling in other professionals as well. So we've got to get the lawyers involved because we've got to start looking at what we're handing over, how we're selling it. We've got to get a business valuation done. The banks get involved. You're dealing with the banks a fair bit at the moment. How are you finding that at the moment?
I think the banks...
Not that we're here to dump on the banks.
No.
There's plenty of people who can do that for us. But yeah, just in terms of day-to-day, because I think too that's changing, isn't it?
Well, I think we spoke about resourcing before. Well, I think the banks are experiencing a resourcing issue. So the same thing for them. There are a limited amount of people available to dot the I's and cross the T's and do the tick box exercise, to grant loans, to grant an overdraft facility and that type of thing. They are pulled from pillar to post. So I'll stick up for the banks a little bit. There you go. I'm on my own there.
And I think when you say you stick up for the bank, you probably stick up for the people working in the banks. I think as an entity, love or hate them, that's here or there. I think day to day, you're still dealing with a human being, and those human beings have got stretched resources.
That's right. There's too few doing too much. So it is challenging with the banks. It is challenging dealing with a number of government organisations for the same thing of there is a level of compliance, you may call it red tape if you like, bureaucracy in there that the tick box exercise from 10 years ago was 3 questions. It's now 10 pages of questions that need to be ticked off on. So there's a level of compliance in there with sales of business, with just ongoing business, running a business.
Even ongoing finance, there's just more and more, isn't there?
Yeah. So to get finance, you need to provide more documentation today than we've ever had to in the past with banks, and that's
the wait times are longer too.
The wait times are longer. So there's a level of patience that you require when dealing with the banks, dealing with the tax office, dealing with state revenue officers, dealing with councils, to understand that there is. You might want something done today. The expectation should be it's not going to be done until next week. And
that's probably that forward planning is one thing that if you're out there and you're having discussions, have them with your accountant, have them with Ash if Ash is your looking after you, but have them early, because I think that is more and more of a issue, is that you might need the funds in 3 weeks' time. It doesn't mean you're able to get them in 3 weeks' time. And even when the bank says you've got pre-approval, that's basically saying we're happy to have a conversation with you. There's still many steps in the process.
Do your budgeting, do your cash flows, have a look and say, gee, we're going to run short of cash leading into Christmas when we buy all our Christmas stock. So we need a large influx of cash in July, August, September to buy our Christmas supplies, Christmas stock. But we potentially won't have the money in the bank in July, August, September. Have the conversation with the bank in March to say, I need some money in June, July, August to buy my stock for Christmas. And the banks will understand that. You present the figures, they will help you out where they can. But don't go to them in July and say, can I have tomorrow?
Next week, can you send me this?
Exactly.
No, that's really good. In terms of some of these succession discussions that you're having, do you see is there a trend of handing off businesses and farms to the next generation, or are they looking to sell? What's the general consensus out there? Is it more of the I want to get this ready and I want to sell it, the kids aren't interested, or is it more, hey, this is a legacy I want to continue to hand off to the next generation?
The majority of them at the moment in the farming sector are passing on to the next generation.
Yeah, great.
I'm not seeing at the moment many that are walking off the farm and selling the farm.
Yep.
I do expect that to happen over the next 5 to 10 years with a few of my clients.
Mm-hmm.
There's not... in a couple of circumstances, there's no kids.
Yep.
But in a couple of circumstances, the kids have moved off farm and are successful elsewhere, are not going to return to the farm. Mum and dad are aware of that, so they're perhaps slowly winding down the farm, continuing to farm, but slowly winding it down with the expectation of our farming operation will cease and we'll sell the farm rather than pass it on to the next generation. Yep. But more so, it's family succession at this stage.
Yeah, okay. And that's interesting, because I think that's a different conversation sometimes in a sale, isn't it? Because it's, well, how do I hand this off well? How do I make sure they're set up with everything they need? As opposed to thinking of selling it to an outside party where there's probably some different processes you would go through as part of that.
That's right. And essentially, when you sell a farm, you're not selling a business. You're selling a piece of real estate.
Yes.
So that is different to selling a business. With a business, you are selling the intellectual property of that business. You're selling the customer base of that business.
Yep.
And so there's it needs to keep operating as a business the day after it's sold.
Yes.
The farm, if you're selling the farm, the new owners might take a couple of years to get the farm up and running. It could be the farmer next door has gone and bought your farm because it's the first bit of land that's become available in the region.
Yes.
For X number of years. I've had clients buy the farm next door when it became available, not so much for the land, but for the farmhouse, because so the next generation could live still out on the farm.
There you go.
Yes, they will farm the land, but the enticing part of the whole deal was it's the first time a farmhouse has become available in the region for a number of years.
There you go. Yeah.
So different perspective there for farmers.
Yes.
But certainly for business, you're looking at getting the business into a shape that you can sell it. So you need to have potentially, what are your long-term contracts with clients and with suppliers? What are your premises? What's the situation with your premises? Do you have a long-term lease, or does the lease run out next year? If the lease runs out next year, you probably need to renegotiate that before trying to sell the business.
Yeah, and I think some people can get caught with that, thinking, well, it's there, it'll be there forever. No. There's usually a lease agreement. How long's that lease agreement? Can I actually keep operating in here under the similar terms, or do I have to renegotiate them and all those kind of things?
Yep. What's the quality of the equipment I'm passing on? If it's a manufacturing style business where there is $1 million, $5 million, $10 million worth of plant and equipment, is it actually worth that?
Yes.
Or you're passing on $1 million worth of plant and equipment that needs to be replaced in 2 years' time for potentially $10 million. So that's a less attractive buy for a purchaser coming in.
Well, especially when you then have to go and spend that money not to make anything more, just to continue business as usual.
That's correct. Yeah.
It is a tougher conversation to have.
Absolutely.
Which does complicate things for some people.
Yep.
What are you seeing out there in terms of support for businesses who might be going through a tough time at the moment? We've talked a bit about, if you need cash, get to the bank earlier. Is there anything else that you're seeing out there that you're helping clients with, or that there's support out there for?
I think the biggest issue with clients is planning and understanding your business.
Yep.
And the reason I say that is, as I said before about the cash flow and being aware of cash flow might become tight later in the year because of certain reasons. If you know that up front, you can then put actions in place to stop that from happening, or ease the stress at that time of the year. If you know that sales are dropping and costs are increasing, what are you doing about it? Are you just sitting on your hands and waiting for it to magically turn around? Or have you investigated a marketing campaign, updating some of your product listing or something like that, going out and cold calling potential clients? And I've seen a number of businesses sold post-COVID where the business owners got so worn out through COVID, they pretty much for the year or two after COVID, so 22, 23, 24, they pretty much sat on their hands because they were exhausted.
Yeah.
They were run down, they were exhausted. That was the reason they were selling. But the business had really just floated along for a couple of years because they didn't spend a lot of time on the business.
Yep.
So it's understanding your business, understanding the market that it's in, and then making educated decisions. It's no good guessing.
No. And I think too, one of the important things for people to think about is planning is a tool and a process. It doesn't necessarily mean that you will end up following all that plan 100%, but without the plan in place, what happens is that you don't start to think about, oh, what if this happens? What levers do I pull? If this happens, what can I do to get out of that situation? Until you're there, which then becomes a lot more stressful, where if you've, and there's a bit of psychology behind it too, that if you've already gone through that process in your head, when you are presented with that problem, you are much better equipped to deal with that or to pivot based off what's going on. So I think that is great advice and so crucial for businesses.
I think it's people often forget, and we spoke about it at the start about the mentorship at Strategem with becoming a partner. So many people, when they buy a business, they lose that business mentor, or they don't get a business mentor. So whether it's your accountant, whether it's the guy next door that you're good friends with.
We've all been young once and think we can do it all ourselves.
Absolutely.
Better than everyone else.
Absolutely.
And as I get older, I realise that, I'm not always right when I have that assessment on things. So, you do appreciate those other perspectives.
And some businesses, the husband and wife business, the mum and dad business, they can bounce ideas off one another.
Yes.
So potentially there's a bit of an option, mentorship within that, but go outside of that. If the next door neighbour's a really successful businessman, they may not be in the same industry, but go and ask him what is successful in your business? What do you do? And how does it look, and that type of thing. Speak to the accountant, speak to your professional advisors, speak to the staff. Maybe the staff can give you some insights into what potentially you're doing wrong. If you're doing anything wrong, they might turn around and say, well, I'd never drink at this pub because of this reason.
Yes. But
I'll work here because you pay me. But I'm not going to come here and bring the family here because it's dirty and whatever. You just need to continually seek answers, seek advice, and never settle for, I know everything.
That feedback's invaluable, and I know we have a bit of a process as part of our meeting bookings to actually collect data or feedback, I should say, from clients after a meeting that they've had with us to sort of go, well, what can we do differently? What can we do better? So we use that data to help make better decisions. And if you don't have something like that built into what you do, and there are plenty of programs out there now that automate it, so you don't have to worry about thinking about it too much. It could be a bit more on autopilot, but it just means that you're able to have your finger on the pulse a bit more and really understand why people come back to the business, or why they haven't come back to the business, why they don't like it as well too, which can be hard to hear sometimes. But it's all, you've got to approach it with an open mind and say, if I want to get better, I've got to hear some of the hard bits as well too.
Yeah, Strategem last year underwent a major IT redevelopment. We changed a number of our software systems. We didn't just listen to the salesman from the software companies and we are buying the best possible piece of software.
Yep.
We actually spoke to other accounting firms and said, what's your experience with this piece of software?
Now the shine's worn off for you. Tell us what you really think.
No, I like it.
No, that's that's the question to the other business owners.
Yes.
You're through the honeymoon period.
Yeah.
Is it as good as you thought it was? And clearly you think it's still good. But
what mistakes did you make in the implementation? Or what did you get right in the implementation? It doesn't have to be a mistake. What did you put in place that made this work so well?
And I think we actually took a lot of that on, because the feedback from the software was that we were actually one of the best prepared organisations they'd seen from a transition perspective. We'd taken our time, we'd done our research, we'd put in the groundwork, and yes, it meant that we delayed probably bringing on that software as quickly as we would have liked, but it also meant that it was such a smooth transition that when we got in, yes, there's been some hiccups and issues. There always is going to be if you think there's a tech solution that doesn't. I'll go and implement it and find out. But it was pretty seamless. So yeah, I think that's
But it's not sitting back and just trusting that you know everything.
No.
It's going out and getting other advice.
Yeah, which I think is invaluable. While we're talking about tech, obviously, when you started at Strategem 27 years ago, the technology looked a little bit different. And in some ways it doesn't, because if anyone doesn't realise, we still use spreadsheets, and spreadsheets have been around for a very long time. You were using a computer when you first started at Strategem, weren't you?
I was, yes.
Yep. No,
yes.
Good, just checking. But obviously you've seen a lot of the technology transition over the years. Is accounting dead?
No.
Okay, good. No, that's all right. Because I there's always these industry pundits out there that say this industry's dead or that industry's dead. I've heard, that people have written obituaries over the compliance for accounting and saying that this is accounting. Compliance is pegged for accounting, and then every year there's new legislation, there's new issues to navigate, there's more problems, there's more red tape, there's more, in fact, we probably said it's almost a bit the reverse. Yes, some things are easier, but there's a whole lot of other things that we now have to think of. What are you seeing in terms of technology shift? Are you becoming irrelevant, do you feel, or is it even more important than it's been in the past?
So I think I'll go back to the start.
That was a really long question.
I'll go back. So this is going to be a really long answer.
Great.
I'm going to go back 27 years.
Yep.
But I started pre-GST.
Yep.
So my first 9 months at Strategem, so much of my work was based on physical check butts, physical bank statements.
For all the younger listeners out there, a check is a piece of paper you used to take to the bank, and they would do a transaction. It's kind of like a bank transfer these days, but in paper form. They just don't exist much anymore, do they?
No. So that was how I did my first jobs at Strategem, was basically purely paper-based.
Yep.
Now,
did you have the paper ledgers as well?
Yes.
Yeah, wow. Yep.
So both of them. July 2000, GST was introduced in Australia. Yep. And all of a sudden, all those clients that were doing paper-based bookkeeping went on to software programs such as MyOb, such as QuickBooks back in the day. And so they moved to an electronic digital accounting software package. Yep. And that, for the most part, look, it kept getting updated every 6 months. There were new releases. But for 20 years, it probably didn't change an awful lot. 15 years didn't change a lot. It moved from desktops to the cloud perhaps 10 years ago.
Yes.
And so there was a significant change there again.
And the cloud sort of opened up the ability to connect other things into the software, where when it's a desktop-based thing, it's kind of this standalone. It's a lot more clunky.
Well, I'm going to use an ancient term here, but we used to get floppy disks.
Wow.
So we used to get
3.5 inch, put it in.
Yep.
Yep.
And then ring the client and say, you haven't saved it, or the disk is corrupted and it hasn't worked. And we've evolved to memory sticks along the way.
Yeah.
And now majority of clients are cloud-based, and so I can just log in at my end, sitting at my desk, while they're logged in at home or at the office, and look at the same piece of software and the same accounting transaction that they're looking at their end.
Yes.
So that has been the evolution of accounting software at the client level.
So essentially, the access to data has become a lot more readily available. You can get it a lot sooner than you could by getting the book at the end of the year or going through the check butts. But it's actually almost meant more relevancy and more need to be on top of what's going on than less, hasn't it?
That's it. Because there's, as we've spoken about, there's compliance, and there's more and more compliance, and there's forms that we need to complete for the ATO today that we didn't need to complete 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And that's going to become more burdensome as time comes on.
Got some new ones, payday supers coming up soon. Like, if you went back even 5 years, superannuation in terms of what the employers obligations were, how they paid it, looks a lot different than it does
Very
now.
much so, very much so. And so that is a lot of our next 3 months leading up to June 30 is going to be transitioning clients from quarterly or monthly superannuation returns to payday super every week on their payroll, every fortnight, every month, depending on what their payroll cycle is. They're going to have to pay super at basically that same time. So there's an education process and an informing process with the clients there. There's been an enormous amount of discussion just recently in the last couple of weeks about changes to the CGT discount. I think I've had a dozen phone calls and meetings in the last 2 weeks discussing CGT discount and what the changes may be. And at the moment, all I can say is I'm not sure.
And the hard thing is, like we talk about technology, yes, if we had the technology today and we only had to do what we did 20 years ago, we'd probably need less people. But the problem is now we have more complexity. There's been more things added in. So without the technology, costs would probably be a lot higher for the client, and there'd be a lot more that they would need to be doing, pulling their hair out with and things like that as well too.
That's it.
Do you think it is getting? It's almost becoming untenable for that small business owner with 1 or 2 employees in terms of the compliance, the red tape, just all the different things they need to go through. Because we're only talking about accounting, we're not talking about OH&S and all the other areas that they need to be thinking about as well too.
It's certainly something that is weighing on a lot of my smaller clients' minds. And it is one of those burnout factors that I'm hearing about is, I've got to complete this form, I've got to do this, I've got to jump through that hoop with council, with government, whatever. You speak to any builder and they'll complain about getting building permits and that type of thing. So there's a lot of roadblocks in the way or speed bumps in the way that are slowing down the process and making office work and the office work of a business much more tiresome for those that potentially aren't skilled at office work.
And I think the hard thing is if you've maybe brought the business off a family member, or you've been in the business and there's been a succession plan and you've taken over the business from the previous owner, what it looked like when they were the owner probably looks a little different to now too. Like, you probably saw them on the tools more. They were able to, get involved in what was going on day to day a bit more. Where now there's almost more pull for them to be in front of a computer or things like that, isn't there? That actually makes it harder operating the business because you are not there day to day like you maybe once were.
And one of the challenging things with some of the succession planning I've seen is mum and dad did all the books themselves, and they'd sit down each week and they'd enter it in onto the computer, or they'd fill in the Green Ledger books or whatever.
Like a fun Sunday afternoon activity.
But they're looking at passing on the business to the next generation, and potentially the son, the daughter, their spouse, they don't want to do the bookkeeping.
Yes.
They don't have any bookkeeping skills and are not interested in doing it. They've got what they want to do, and it is challenging for... That is part of that succession planning as well.
And that bookkeeping is nearly more integral these days than ever, especially with how quickly things are moving in terms of, payments, reporting and all those kind of things. If you don't have your finger on the pulse with what's going on, trends, what's going on with sales data, what's going on with your expenses, 6 months, 12 months, it can be too long to actually be looking at some of these things, can't it?
Well, and we spoke about the banks and the information the banks ask for when you're looking for finance.
Yes.
One of the things they will undoubtedly ask for, the only time they don't ask for it is July, August, September, is do you have your tax returns done? They accept that most businesses won't, but can you provide us with an up-to-date profit and loss?
Yes.
Now, if the client has a really good Xero file, MyOb file, then click of a button, they can get that information to the bank and, again, speed up that process that could be a long, drawn-out hassle for them.
Creates quite a few issues.
Yep.
That's really good. Thank you for those insights, Ash. I'm conscious of time, and I don't want to... I mean, we could spend all day talking about this. I don't think as many people probably appreciate how complicated it can be doing the accounting, giving the support, running a business, all those kind of things until you've been in it a bit. Have you got any advice for any businesses out there who may be in those final phases of success, like thinking about succession or thinking, what do I do next? I'm operating. Is this something I want to keep doing? Is there any advice for you for people to really think about? How do I maybe get out of this rut, or how do I plan for that next step?
So it is one, it's planning.
Yep.
It's having the discussion potentially with family and friends.
And that probably needs to happen sooner than people realise.
Absolutely, and that's why I have the discussion, or just even raise the question every year with so many of my business clients is, what are the plans? What are you thinking of doing in the next couple of years?
You've facilitated a few meetings with the parents and the kids as well, haven't you?
That's it. So you start having those conversations, and as I say, it's one I'm thinking of at the moment, is sort of saying it's probably 10 years before we're getting out.
10 years goes quick though in
but
business.
The plan is potentially that the kids will take over the business.
Yes.
So, one, do the kids know this? What are the kids' plans? What ages are the kids?
Yep.
What skills do the kids perhaps need to take over that business?
Yes.
Between now and then, what do we need to do? But if that falls through...
And the mentoring as well too. It's not just go get the ticket.
Yep.
Hey, I need to show you how this works.
Yeah.
Yep.
If, heaven forbid, we go back to somebody trying to sell a business that still operates on checks, and I know there's very few of them, but there's something where you need to get that up to date because you're really going to struggle to sell a business that operates still that way.
But I think there's that argument across, if you're running a business, checks is probably a great example that we can use, but there's probably other things that you're doing that people might be doing in their business that is outdated, that hasn't changed, that hasn't kept up with the times, hasn't been conscious of there's a whole better way of doing things.
Yeah. So it's as I said before, it's, have I got a saleable asset? What do I need to make this become a saleable asset?
Well, how much is it actually worth?
That's it. We had said the example about the outdated plant and equipment.
Yep.
Do I need to spend money on plant and equipment now, or do I just accept I'm going to have to take a lot less for the sale of this business in 3 years' time? Now, that might be a reasonable decision to make. I'll accept less for a sale price by not having to update my plant and equipment today.
But it's being conscious of
but
it.
It's making an educated decision.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Have I got the right product mix? Have I got the right client base? If I've got 20% of my sales going to 2 clients and the other 80% of my sales going to 1,000 clients, how safe are those 2 clients? Do I need to put things in place, or do I need to diversify my business a bit more to reduce the risk of those 2 high value clients disappearing and going upon transition of a business? Because I think the expectation is that I'm going to keep all the customers that I've just bought.
Yes.
That's probably not going to happen.
And I think that's the big thing with anyone thinking about buying or selling is there's a risk reward trade-off here. And what you might not see as risky could actually be interpreted by the person coming in to buy the business as actually, I actually see, yes, that's been a long-term client for you, but that I see that as a risk for me. Because if I lose that, that's right. That's a lot of the revenue that I'm buying.
Well, that 80-20 split is, if I lose those 2 clients with the 20% of the turnover, that's a dramatic issue for my business. If I keep them but lose 2 clients that are part of the 80%, it's a different conversation. Yeah.
No, that's really good. Well, Ash, thank you. Appreciate your insights. Appreciate your experience that you bring to the table. If anyone would like to talk to Ash about business, would like to get a bit more of an understanding of what's involved, what they could be doing better, or having a roundtable succession planning discussion, please reach out to Ash. But thank you, Ash. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Kris. Been a pleasure.
We'll see you all at the next episode. Thank you very much.